Hey, and welcome to TSOB. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are interested in investing or starting their own funds. We are Adam Anderson and Zach Eikenberry. Join us to get a behind-the-scenes look at the relationships between founding entrepreneurs and the VCs that invest in them. I tell you what, when the pre-call where we're talking about stuff and you're like, I'm coming in hot, I'm like, no, bro, I'm coming in hot. That to me means like we're going to talk over each other and it's going to get nothing done. So I'm really excited about just how crappy this particular podcast is going to be. But, we never promised that Two Stones, One Bird was a high content quality program. We just said two guys are going to talk a lot, and sometimes we'll get other people in and give you a behind the scenes look at the relationship between startup entrepreneurship, venture, capital allocators, etc. So screw it. Let's go. Let's just do it, man. You say you're coming in hot. 2 barrels, 1 gun. What? That doesn't make any sense.
Right. No, I'm not sure, but so my coming in hot is simply a reference to the idea that right now I'm the bottleneck of a lot of call it activities and information, and it all has to do with funding. And the amount of effort that it takes to get from yes, I'll invest to the check.
Yeah,
it is more effort for me. I don't know if it's more effort for me than getting people from the we've never met before to yes, I'll invest.
Yeah,
that pitch process I can do all day, and I can sort through because it's funnels. Every no is closer to yes. I know that I've got to get through 30 no's to get my yes. So like every no is just me getting closer. Like I can have that mindset. When somebody says yes and we go, okay, we're going to get married, and we start wedding planning together and we have a date in mind, I cannot tell you how frustrated. In particular, I'm very frustrated by attorneys right now. But attorneys in the name of de-risking
kill deals.
The future deal risk the immediate. And it is absolutely frivolous. It is not of consequence, the things that they're like recommending for edits on documents, etc. And they do it under the name of clarification so they get more billable hours. I've yet to find the attorney who will just have the integrity. I know actually a couple, but they don't like work with me on these deals, who would ever suggest, hey, listen, there's some immaterial things that could be improved upon this document here, but for the sake of your timing and your business needs, we can revisit those when at the next stage of development. Right? Because the greater existential threat to our business is running out of capital. It's not making sure that you have certain, clarifying language under like jurisdiction within a contract.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you will say, lawyer, move fast. And they'll be like, okay. And then something goes wrong later. And then they come back and point fingers. But what you're saying is, I don't care about the risk. Well, I'm paraphrasing. What I hear you say is, it doesn't matter what the risk of tomorrow is if we die today.
Yeah. So my point is, there's very few attorneys who see the total risk of the business in place where they factor in this one particular agreement. Right? Or these set of documents or this checklist. Like they're not putting it in context. And I know that's the role of the CEO to drive the attorneys, but what happens is not our attorneys on our side, it's the attorneys on the investor side who don't see themselves as disrupting and hurting our business by changing a clause or updating a document. In particular, you might have seen this between like, since you're one of the investors in Hook Security, like there's just a number of documents that were sent out, and some were retracted and some were not. There's things in some of like, and none of it is material. None of it. where we send out, in our case, when we're talking about debt, a subordination agreement. You, as an investor, when you first signed on with us, invested in a subordinated note.
Yep.
You've already agreed to subordination.
Yep.
I take it to 10 attorneys, 9 out of 10 say, that's suffice. We work with this particular attorney who says, no, I don't trust any of your subordinated agreements.
Yeah.
We need to do our own.
Yeah.
And guess
I
who
don't know those guys.
Guess at closing, who pays that attorney's fee? Not the lender, me, for that stupid agreement having to go out again. And so that's one of the high trigger points for me, where I'm coming in hot saying, like, this was an exercise in, frivolity. This was us all looking at each other at the dinner party saying, like, I know we've already served apps, but, like, why don't we indulge and serve them again? And you're like, no, move on. Let's get to the main course. Like,
yeah, we're gonna fill up on apps. Man, there's a great steak coming my way. One of the things that we're doing with Anzu's Capital, and we're positioning it inside of Angel's List, and we're doing a couple Angel List and doing a couple other things, is to streamline that stupid process where it is a rubber stamp legal thing. But we went and reviewed the out of the box Angel List legal documents that everyone just rubber stamps because they want to build their syndicate or they want to build their SPV or whatever. And our lawyer just destroyed them. It's like, no, this is horrible. It was horrible. And they actually listened and they're changing stuff, which is I think the appetite for removing the friction point of one human being able to disrupt an entire deal because they don't like particular wording about a particular interpretation about how they see a thing is going away. I see the world heading more and more towards smart automated contracts for deal flow made by smart, intelligent people.
Yes. So one, I see a world like that, and I hope you're right. And, like, what I understand to be the case is that for 99% of agreements, this thing works, but there's like a 1% use case where it could be abused, right?
Correct.
And so, like, somebody could, in theory, do some crazy thing, right? And the law is trying to capture both of those things simultaneously. They're trying to capture what's normal and the exception all together in the same documents. And with automated contract work and the ability to marry risk and to identify who the participants in the agreement are, and what is the actual likelihood of various type of risk that those particular participants bring.
That's not part of the equation, right? What that is like, it's a lot of effort for me to look at you as an individual and to understand. I mean, I kind of want a don't be a dick clause in there. That's like, hey, we decided we've done a background check. You're not a douchebag. We can move on. But that's not how it works. It's like setting up a global policy because one employee did something wrong. That's not the right answer. The right answer is to see each person as an individual as much as you possibly can, and then to write contracts and to write agreements based off of the situation in front of you. Not, hey, I've had experiences in the past, or I've read about experiences in the past where something might go wrong. We should totally look at that. To me, that's a limiting way of doing it, and it actually slows everything down and it kills deals, because now you're having lawyers going back and forth on hypotheticals that have nothing to do with the thing that's in front of them.
Yeah. So, like, let's talk about investing or what have you, right? Let's
do that. That sounds great.
It's disproportionately focusing on the exception, not the rule, right? And so there are bad actors or bad folks out there. Like, even fundraising at Hook, I've come across people who are cons,
sharks,
right? Like sharks, like, oh, we can raise this money for you. We do this thing's easy. You have a great program, etc.
Right. Checks.
Yeah. And so there's this very interesting world of sharks who make a living or a killing, if you were, off of small business owners who are super passionate about their small business doing their thing. And they circle around and they promise easy access to capital and credit. They circle around promising, X amount of new customers and marketing effort, etc. And these sharks never get captured or killed by, like, we don't have a way in capitalism to stop giving them money and opportunity because there's so many small businesses and the small businesses don't have a network apart. The only thing that is our network together between small businesses, they're attorneys. So like their attorneys are this layer of people who can talk to each other and see all the bad cases and bad apples. And so what happens is the attorneys get a warped view of what's happening in the exception world. And then the business owner is, the small business owner is constantly taken advantage of. Now, what's interesting that I think is different for like folks in our space, high growth companies, entrepreneur startups that are focused on, outsized returns, et cetera, or outsized shareholder returns, is we can get other feedback loops. So they're starting to become a way for founders to police the VC world and founders. So apart from attorneys.
Yeah.
And what I think that's going to end up happening is the small business has a bunch of friction with all their agreements and all these things right here. And this attorney talking back and forth to this attorney. And so attorneys coming out of small business bring friction. But attorneys who specialize in capital allocation deals are starting to realize that founders are capable of judging risk themselves. They become risk advisors. And I think there's hope in the capital allocation world that the founders and other people can police the bad apples out, and the contracting agreements will be normalized to an appropriate level of risk. So that might sound academic, but my point is, I think we'll probably see a different level of attorney class work itself out over time, and that attorney class will not introduce friction like we just experienced with these small business guys out of Louisville trying to blow up a contract.
I hope you're right. I do push back a little bit about the entrepreneur being able to police bad actor VCs, because you are not a first-time entrepreneur. You've done this before. You've gotten scars. You have experience. You're navigating it different. If I'm talking to a 24-year-old MBA grad who's just like, I'm going to make the world a better place, and that's how every one of them talks, exactly in that tone of voice, they are not equipped to do the kind of behavior you just said. So I think that there is a future where the entrepreneurs can, hold accountable the bad actors, but it's a heavy lift and is not going to just happen by itself. It's one of the things that I don't love accelerators and incubators, and I don't love those concepts, but what they do well is they at least give the entrepreneur a platform to stand on to get started a little bit ahead of the game, and particularly around the lawyers. And it's always been asinine to me. The advice I get from the accelerators or from these incubators is, whatever attorney the venture capital company is working with, you should work with that attorney. And that will make it so that you have zero friction with any of the legal. And I'm like, so I'm going to be working with a bunch of different VCs. Does that mean I have to find the attorney that does all the law for all these VCs? And that's my pool. And we've been trained that customer acquisition of venture capital money means that you go to a lawyer, and that lawyer has a connection with all of the VCs, and then that lawyer de-risks the whole thing. And I thought, yay, that sounds great. But then the next thing is, okay, now you also need to work with the CFO, because after they trust the law and they trust that legal is going to happen, they now need to go and trust, is the financial projections right? So now you need to have that guy, and that the CFO also has all those connections, and you're building the spider web of people who are going to be acting on your behalf to represent you to venture capital that you're somebody that can trust, and you do all that work and you get to the finish line and they're still nickel and diming, they're still changing. It's like, no, I'm working with the people you told me to work with. I've established the trust. I've done everything you told me to do. And the end of the day is that this is not a science. This is an art, and art is subjective. And you're going to bump into all kinds of different VCs and private equity folk who are going to say, yes, my lawyer is my hammer, so I don't actually have to tell you what I think. I'm going to let that thing just go. We were doing a deal. Just heard yesterday that at the nth hour, where everyone's about to get started, it was like you said, I was listening to some of our past podcasts because I find this fascinating. And you get to that underwriter stage, that back stage where you're at the finish line, and then somebody behind the scenes kills the deal. And that happened yesterday to one of our portfolio companies. And it's garbage, right? Because there's no transparency. And when I see the interaction that you're talking about, and it's probably not this, with what you're talking about with the back and forth from the lawyers, but what's going on in the back of my head is that's not the real problem. That's the smokescreen.
Yeah. So, I mean, right, there's an emerging second way for VCs, capital allocators, to be wildly successful. The first one is do what you say you're going to do. And the second is the Brene Brown quote, which, is the idea that, clarity is kindness. And so my head goes immediately towards what would happen if there was full transparency as to every person who made an edit to a document. And it wasn't just a comment, it was like a justification for this, and imagine a comment section that they actually had to put what level of riskiness they thought it introduced.
On the scale from 1 to 10, how much is it? Oh, it's a 1, and now you need to pay me $16,000.
Yeah, so like imagine you being able to see which individual. So like imagine like a product map with all these little headshots.
Yeah.
And you get to see who added what level of riskiness and friction to the process as you walk through the whole thing. So these tools will eventually exist. There'll be some sort of SASS tool that attorneys and other people all use that demonstrate every stakeholder in the deal and how much activity they've put in, how many edits, how many hours, who's waiting on what.
Yeah.
And it'll be a dashboard of riskiness, and you'll get to see which stakeholders put the deal at risk.
So that's the thing, is that the deal at risk is a business problem. A line in a document is a legal problem. And what happens that kills deals is you have all of these interested stakeholders, all with their own job of risk reduction. And the only people who are looking at the business risk is the entrepreneur CEO.
Yep. Right. Well, there's a thing, right? So they de-risk the document and increase the risk to the deal.
Correct.
So they shift risk. They don't actually de-risk.
Yeah. That's actually more of a ripple because, man, if it's not closed in 30 to 60 days, it's not happening. I don't know what to tell you. And if you go back and forth with a lawyer and they chew up 2 to 3 weeks, we had some investors in, where was it? Kentucky, ready to go. And it took us, I think, almost 4 months to get the paperwork done with the lawyers. They already deployed the capital someplace else. We lost the LPs. So, I mean, I have the black eyes and bloody noses that you're talking about, and you're really making me go like, oh yeah, this is a bigger problem than that. I mean, it's a problem in the ecosystem of what we're doing, and it really just outlines there's got to be a better way of deploying and allocating capital for a win-win-win that doesn't depend on 1,000 middlemen with subjective opinions about risk that are only focused on the cog and not on the engine.
Yeah, I just wonder.
Hold on, that was a great line. We got to honor.
Was.
That was, whoo, should be recording this shit. This is great.
Yes, Adam. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
There you go. Now you're getting it.
And improving a line that is now genius. I love it.
It really is good. I think go ahead. You're in the middle of getting your emotional needs met. Keep going.
No, I think so. The idea about the cog versus the engine, the ripple effect of risk or the shifting of risk, like it does seem to me that there will need to eventually be some tools placed on a set of agreements and documents. Imagine a little plugin for, Google Docs, a little add-on that allows you to create a dashboard of who's introducing what kind of risk to the document edits, who, and like there are things like timers, like you said, the biggest risk is time. So when was this document first shared? When was it first viewed? And then you have this little milestone map, and then you say how many days until the attorney actually took a time to edit or look at it. And then so you see like this increase of risk score go up incrementally, so that you as a founder CEO can look at the set of agreements and you can see this one's creeping up to yellow over here.
Yeah, give me my dashboard.
And because I see my dashboard on this particular document, and there's other ways that his risk is introduced and other ways that it's alleviated. And, and there's just a number of things that you could start to see as far as your agreement flow and so I don't know what that information is called when you have a set of like agreements and documents that are like critical to your continuation as a company. But it would be very interesting to just have like a risk shift app that you put in, and as a CEO, I can just see at any given time what's at risk.
And so I took a little bit of a dig at AngelList with the fact that I didn't love their legal docs, but the challenge is that you can systemize and create a product that does what you're talking about. The way that, Allocations, AngelList, these other guys are all trying to do is create platforms. Where it breaks down is that in order to have scalability with a software SaaS product that meets the needs, you have to narrow your scope. And so one of the challenges that entrepreneurs face is I'm a special snowflake and my deal is completely my own deal and everything is da 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 da. And so to accomplish what you're talking about and to have some of these platform works, what they end up doing is they end up doubling down and getting to the lowest common denominator for the largest amount of people. And so I'm encouraged by what you said, because that's not mutually exclusive, right? Fine, come up with 16 different platforms for different kinds of things. Let me pick the one that's right for me. But in that whole system, I need to have transparency, and I need that tied back to risk as a time factor for killing the deal, right? There should be a countdown timer. There should be a, hey, you're in a drive-through, you've got the timer going. We promise you get your fries within blah, right? So, yeah, no, that's very smart.
Yeah, something like that. Just that'd be interesting. I'm sure there's a version of a tool, but yeah.
But all right. Well, I've heard quite enough of you on this topic.
What's on your mind?
Oh, thanks for asking. But no, that's cool. I didn't know you were going to come in hot on lawyers, because really that was like. Anyway, there's probably 1,000 jokes. We're going to leave it alone there. But as I said, I was listening to a bunch of our old podcasts as we're getting ready to, launch this bad boy, and I'm making sure the quality is great. And you will notice, dear listener, that our quality is getting better. And yet we still sound like we don't know what we're doing. And that's okay. We will figure that out by episode 60, I promise. But it reminded me that like a month or two ago, you had an aha moment when you were talking to somebody and you're giving them advice about how to raise money from their customers. And you talked about, hey, you guys should do a PR stunt, and then you should raise money and all this other stuff. And you actually did the thing that you were talking about. and you have started that whole process. And I was wondering if you could, I don't know, give us a high level overview of what that strategy looked like, just kind of reminding us, why you decided maybe the right investor is the one who's actually your customer, and then talk through, what does setting that up look like to you, and where do you think it's going to end up?
Yeah, so with Hook Security, because we work with managed service providers, we basically said, what if we took our pitch deck out to managed service providers before we took on institutional funding? Because at the level, for our case, Series A, once you take in institutional funding, you're basically set out on this path. Like the way that you stay within the market is pretty well defined. Like, hit X amount of revenue metrics, do this second tier set of metrics exactly right, have your gross margins in the right place, your net retained revenues and all this other KPIs, have those all in place, then boom, you do your Series B. And then then everybody says, oh, now it gets a lot harder. And then you go and you redo and you have a different set of KPIs alongside these larger stories and narratives that have to go across the market. And so you just kind of keep working your way up, C, D, E. The only place that angels come back in is like prior to IPO.
Right.
Ultra high net worth people have little insights and in routes to, pre-IPO opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
That's my conspiracy out there, but I think that's how it happens.
Oh, I agree.
And then you IPO, or there's a private equity deal on the horizon. It's going to wrap everything up to a larger roll up, etc. Again, you still have the same path. It's just kind of the exit ramp at the end. So where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with a small window at Hook to reach out to our partners and to say, hey, we want to be for MSPs, but what if we were by MSPs as well?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just started having our conversations this week with some MSPs. And frankly, I think they get it. They get the opportunity. There's a little bit of belt tightening across the board for folks. I can hear that when talking with them. Like, great. I don't know how the current economic reset is going to affect my business.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go out too far. Right. But the answer is not no either. Right. So we're starting those conversations, and it's proven really. I don't know if we could have done this when we were smaller in revenue, smaller in brand size, but we can now that we are a talking point. We've de-risked their reputation to be with us, and now we're going to de-risk, ourselves by working with them even further.
I love that. And how long did it take you from concept to actually running the campaign to start talking to them?
Oh, I already had the deck and everything built. I just created a couple more slides with the justification and just, complete transparency on why are we doing this? What are we expecting? So it took 2.5 weeks to have our first conversation.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you're targeting a fast turnaround close. Where
it's got to be decided. Yes. And frankly, we have enough interest from other parties who are non-partners to participate. And I don't have infinite ability to take on cash because I would also begin to dilute myself in my own interest from future fundraising. So I put future fundraising at risk if I take on too much cash now.
Right.
And so between those two polls, it's just kind of a window for us. And I mean, frankly, it's 30, let's say 40 days.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Is the window. So no one's going to hurt my feelings, but I'm being completely clear. If you want to say yes, we get the agreement to you. You can wire, or we've even set up a little ACH thing. You can ACH us.
Hey, send us some of your Luna. and we'll.
Yeah.
Oh, too soon. Still too soon.
Is
Sorry,
Luna,
Luna people.
is Luna trading back on Coinbase yet?
Should it ever? I don't know. I think this. We're going to fall into crypto that's not backed by anything conversations, and I don't think that's.
Oh yeah,
that's
okay. Crypto that's backed by things. Okay. Yes. You know how like we've tied crypto to water resources. So Lake Powell crypto is just off the chain right
slaying.
That joke's funny on several levels.
I'm glad you think so. Yeah, I got a sinking feeling when you were doing that. I really felt drained about that joke. Yeah. But you know what?
You're watering down my joke.
Yeah, just ship it. Just get it out of here. It's I don't. Hey, look, if I'm causing waves, I should stop, right? But I can tell you're fishing for a compliment.
Yeah, I see it.
I see it. I'll do 3. You do 1. Let's just do that.
You come prepared for these.
No, I don't. I have an amazing brain. It's been proven.
Yeah, right. No,
I have the science behind it. I'm freaking awesome, dude. Processor speed off the charts. Anyway, I just thought that was really cool because at later stages, as the company is beginning to mature and you're beginning to get traction, what's a lot of entrepreneurs just feel like they're trapped in the normal fundraising, especially going after that Series A.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have to be that way.
But I also, when we were first starting Hook, we had this same conversation. Somebody said, hey, you should raise money from your partners, your clients, or your best folks. What we found when we breached the subject with them a few times is they were actually very concerned because managed service providers, they don't want to introduce you to their clients and think you could go out of business. Mm-hmm. And so when you see this idea that we need capital to grow and we're not fully capitalized yet, etc., they start going, wait, hold on. Right, I'll take off my investor hat. Now I put on my client hat and I say, are you introducing risk to my stack?
Yes, I'm a lawyer.
Well, just as an MSP, in our space, we realized that conversation could happen too early. That they could be huge fans of our product, think we're awesome. And if I said, hey, would you be interested in putting, $50K into us because we're raising some funds and we're ready to go to the next level, they'd be like, so how much revenue do you have?
Right. How many employees?
Did I jump before everybody else? I'm an MSP herd mentality, and you're telling me that you picked me out of the herd.
Yeah.
And got me as an early adopter. I'm not an early adopter.
Is Mike Gazelle sick? Is there something wrong with me that you chose me?
Yeah, that was some of the tenor of a couple of conversations we had. And I said, oh, you can do the approach your clients and partners for equity too early.
Yeah. Well, it's a dance, because if you have the right partner or client, then they help you get started. If it's the wrong one, and it's the adoption curve, right? And only 10% of the people are early adopters who are going to get wildly excited about the brand new thing and can't wait to disrupt the world. And the other 90%, you're scare away. So you don't just do a blanket campaign and talk to every single customer. You have to have what I like to call the social skills and emotional intelligence, and ask questions and discover. But what's working for Hook is that Hook has such a overwhelming presence in the market. You guys have won all these awards. You've got, tens of thousands of users being trained every month, and you're there, right? And so now you can go from a position of power to actually authentically say, our seed is closing. Series A is around the corner. You don't have a lot more time to get in on this. And to be clear, your customers that you're looking at, these MSPs, are often 40-30% margins on multi-million dollar businesses. And some of that goes to the owner, but a lot of these things are one person decisions. One high net worth person who's running a $4, $5, $6 million revenue company who's throwing off $1 million plus in EBITDA, and you're saying, hey, you want to put 25K in, you want to put 150K in, and those are very easy decisions for that person to make. If your customers are large enterprises and you're going to their procurement, like, nah, man, that's not what we do here. We don't do investments. We don't do that. We buy products. We don't care about that, right? And so, I'm not saying that this technique is a thing every single entrepreneur should try, but I am saying be encouraged to get creative about where your funding comes from. And in Hooks, man, what a win that would be to tightly align with the people that you care about helping the most. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. That's the other part of it too. So I've hung around a few folks that would be high net worth, and
So the restraining orders are over. That's great. Keep going.
yeah, we just talked. You got to have good lawyers, man.
Time ends all restraining orders.
Yeah. What is the actual nature of space? And didn't we all learn that 6 foot distance can mean anything at a Starbucks?
I really think so. Yeah. I digressed. So you were about to say you've been hanging out with high net worth.
So one of the interesting things is the horse trading that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you have an actual real deal that's going to return money, those things are so few and far in between. To hold out on a friend or a colleague or a peer in your network is an insult. And so,
how about that mentality? That's pretty
cool. So there we've bumped into that with a few of our conversations, like, hey, such and such is put into your company. Will you allow me the privilege to put into your company as well? Because that would just be a favor. Like, and I'm asking you I'm being vulnerable, and you have the ability to insult me and say, no, I don't want you on my cap table. But that's an interesting dynamic and conversation that occurs when I've been thinking of it through the lens of, we might have talked about this before, but the Pareto distribution, right? So the Pareto distribution is for any set of, it's really things or people. The square root of them is responsible for 50% or more of the output. So like if you have a room of, or a business with 100 employees, the square root of 100 is 10. 10 employees will be responsible for 50% of the output of the organization. And when it comes to this applies to like everywhere. It's like the mass of stars, the distribution of city populations, the value of real estate, all these fall under Pareto. It's pretty crazy. It was discovered in science first, and now it's being used by sociologists. But the idea of entrepreneurs or startup businesses, right? There's only going to be, out of 100 companies that come to you, only 10 of them will produce 50% of your returns. And then within that 10, one of them will produce more than the others combined. That's just Pareto.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking with folks who do this constantly, are allocating capital, that's their world. And you come to them and there's a shot that you can pick the 1 or the 10 out of the 100.
Right.
Like, don't be pitching them if you don't expect them to actually put in.
Right.
And it's a very interesting game, because on the other hand, on VCs, when you look at venture capital as an entire industry, it's a net loss.
Yeah.
However, out of the 1,000 venture capitalists out there, 100 of them will produce 50% of the returns for the entire industry.
Well,
and out of that 100, 10 of them will produce more than the first 100 combined.
Well, and those numbers are skewed because the top 20% doesn't report accurately, and the bottom 20% sure as hell don't report accurately.
Oh yeah, the bottom 20% could never report accurately. That's not in their best interest.
Right. And it's not in the best interest of the other guys too, because then so I tell people that we talked a little bit about fast capital and slow capital before, and for me, venture is where people go who want to invest capital to change how society and the world works. And sometimes you make a lot of money on it. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a better form of nonprofit, in my opinion, because there's a shot that you might get your money back. There's a lot of cool ways to make money through investments. There really are. But I find myself to be scarcity mindset around time. if I'm going to be on this planet for a certain amount of time and I'm going to leave a legacy, I'd rather work in venture where I have an opportunity to invest in companies. And sure, Pareto principles happening, all the things. But if you look at the space industry and you look at the companies that have failed in the space industry and the other companies that have, built on the shoulders of those dead giants, you really have to look long term about what you want to accomplish and then figure out, okay, how am I going to go invest in that? Right. So if you're looking at startup companies to invest in, and you're thinking that you're going to hockey stick and make 1,000 times your return, the odds are no. But if you're looking at a startup and you have a chance of getting 1,000 times your return, and that company is doing something amazing in the world that's going to move society forward, even if they fail, because they'll change the industry, and you have money that you don't care about losing and you can deploy it, go do that. That to me is what venture capital is all about. It's a place for people to allocate capital that does amazing things for society and the world with a chance that you're going to get outsized returns, but it's absolutely not a guarantee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tend to agree with that. Like, the byproduct of an investment should be some sort of positive impact, right? Like if you are purely by the numbers, and earmuffs, if anybody's listening to this in their car while driving with their kids, if you're looking purely by the numbers, the top hedge funds and VCs thus far to date, since like 2000, are all in the adult entertainment industry. Right.
Oh, shit.
So if you are only care about allocating capital,
God, so many jokes are going through my head right now.
I know, right? Don't toy with
Hold
me.
on. I'm going to put myself on mute and I'm going to say them all. And you keep talking about whatever crap you were talking about.
Can we just have somebody bleep this out? Yes.
Okay, good. I'll text you later.
So, and what's on the heels of that is the adult entertainment has actually turned into like, I forget the industry, but basically it's the intimacy industry. And so you're still,
how do you trust working with that industry? Aren't they all just screwing each other?
That's right. Don't toy with me. Yep.
We're really gonna have to not do this.
You're really gonna. So if you have a byproduct of something that has a positive social impact in the meantime, while doing some really cool things, I think that matters. And I'm even okay if the stretch is we enable frontline people to do better. So like if you have a technology solution, let's say like a DigitalOcean, and you help developers who are developing really cool solutions, like your tool is being used by developers at Tesla to create a more, environmentally friendly vehicle, like that's okay to me because your social impact is has a multiplier effect on other tools. And so I think you're right that's the type of VC level that I'm at, because otherwise capital allocation slides all the way back to like bankers, right? Where your point is to de-risk, ensure long-term viability, collateralize everything. So a bank never actually adds value to a community because there's no capital going forward other than being leveraged by the current. So at any given time, the economic activity in a community is limited to 2x. Take all the value of the real estate into collateral and you 2x that. That's as much as the banks will allow that community to grow in the next year.
Crazy.
Period.
Thanks, banks.
But you can take the roof off that with venture capital.
Well, and there's a blend here, right? We talked about fast money and slow money. We talked about PE versus VC. And if you look at an MSP, right, because we're circling back to the fact that you're trying a creative way of raising money, the way that the MSP generates cash is through their core business. And what you're saying is, yes, And part of your mission, which is to help facilitate the businesses that you are working with actually doing business, is, better security. So that's the mission. And you have a shot of riding the SASS train over here, which gets outside returns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, while you're also running your business. And so this isn't an or conversation. This is you have some winnings from the very cool thing that you're doing, and you can afford to put some of that into venture capital. The question isn't should you, because we're aligned with your mission, we're aligned with where you're going with your business, we're aligned with all these things. The only question is, how much do you have that you're comfortable deploying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And to me, I think I'm not trying to be smarter than all the people who put out money for things like endowments and what have you, right? And so, like, if you were a microcosm, you should probably have 1% of your net worth in speculation, right? Which is typically crypto at this point in time, somewhere around 5 to 10% in venture and private equity. Private equity on this case is all venture is private equity, right? But most private equity isn't venture. It's that one of those things. But so venture just sits under private equity. So you 10% private equity, and then you get into 30% index funds, and then 50% hard assets, real estate, other slightly appreciating activities. And that's how you should do those things. So
well, and that is a solid opinion. That's how you should do things. And at the end of the day, humans are humans. And that's why lawyers, circling full back, have to write all of this stuff and cause all the problems about overall risk, because people want to do what they want to do the way they want to do it.
Do you ever find it odd that
always
that you don't hear massive layoffs at law offices very often and other things, because regulatory environments increase? I was listening to a guy who was talking about the largest lobbyist for the SEC is basically this association of attorneys, and they're constantly trying to increase the size of forms and documents. And so they're trying to get SEC to make longer documents. Simply because that translates across an entire industry into I think one page is equal to something like the net effect of $50 million over the course of 10 years. And
right.
So
we're changing again. We're getting back to the court systems are where you need to make money, and we should just stop all this. I mean, I'm tired.
We just keep throwing two stones at this, right? That's what
2 stones. Let's kill that bird. On that note, I feel like we've taken enough time of these nice people. So hey, why don't you give me a hot take, something at the end? Where are you at?
I think it's very interesting to me that you continue to remind us that the solution, or at least the arena of a solution to capital allocation issues, is to go above and not through the issue, right? So to say, if we have all these things with attorneys, don't go through that issue and try to butt heads and break it all down, what have you. Your solution is to go above it and to create outsized capital returns so that you have a larger voice when you show up at a law firm and say, this is how things need to happen for this next transaction. And so as you do well by doing good, you have a larger voice that goes above the issue. And so that's one of the things I've extrapolated by your connecting the dot over into the fast, slow capital conversation, the social investment conversation.
I think you're absolutely right. And it sounds brilliant when you say it. What I heard you say today that I thought was pretty dang cool was an observation around how very few lawyers see the bigger picture of risk. And we can extrapolate that into all the professional services that you work on. And at the end of the day, the CEO of a startup still has to manage all of these moving parts because the system's not there yet to make it so that you don't have to. So That's why I don't like the CEO. Well, that's it, kids. We're gonna spin out here. We've recorded a closing. I mean, you're gonna hear it. It's gonna be great. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun setting this thing up and continuing these conversations. I think we're gonna start getting some guests on and having some short conversations. Got a short list. And if you have anybody you want us to talk to, drop it into our LinkedIn group. And I hope you're a part of it. And yeah. Hey, it's always good fun to talk with you, Mr. Eikenberry.
Oh, it's good to hear me talk.
Jerk. Hey, and thanks for joining us for the TSOB podcast. Find us on LinkedIn and give us your hot take. The whole reason we're doing this is to get access to better conversations that help us up our game. And if you have something you want to share, we want to hear about it. Find us on the TSOB LinkedIn group and jump in with 2 feet. We can't wait to chat.